too seriously. It was creepy, it was fun, it was a great reading experience. I think if she would have leaned into that a little bit more and just like, then I wish I could embrace it as a fairy tale. Hi, I'm Krizia. Welcome to my channel where I talk about books instead of getting started with my spring term classes. Excuse me while I take a single ginger cube out of a huge soup cup. Alright, so this month I read 15 books. That's bothering me. I read Know My Name by Chanel Miller, which is a memoir about the highly publicized rape case in Stanford University. And this book was fucking phenomenal, seriously. So it was a memoir, but it read like a literary fiction, like a very beautiful, sprawling literary fiction with like these just incredible accounts of nature and setting and, you know, innermost feelings and just really the minutiae. I don't know what word that is. It's very, I feel so pretentious using that, but just like the tiny things that might seem mundane were just, it was like a beautiful paper sculpture just unfolding these just bit by bit in this just like amazing way. And it was a literary feat. I really feel that. I kind of started out the reading journey going, how can she make like one event last an entire novel? And that, I feel bad saying that because it's such a life-altering event, but I was like, I wonder really like how much I wonder if this will be, you know, repetitive. And of course she revisits a lot of the same elements, but I never once felt like it was repetitive. Never once was I bored. Never once did I feel like it was a slog to get through. I feel like it was a bit slow to get through just because it was so rich and so poetic and so, like, you did it justice by reading it at a pace that you weren't trying to get through it really fast. It was absolutely beautiful. Chanel Miller, I already knew she was a talented writer from reading the BuzzFeed letter when it first came out, but I swear her writing kind of comes across like, it reminds me of Nina LaCour's writing, but it's like, it's not a fiction. It's just my favorite type of writing. It just hones into like the tiniest little quiet feelings, like alone in her room, of these just complicated, like depressed, sad feelings, but she always found like a silver lining in the whole thing, and she always just stayed so true to like herself and her dreams and her family, and she just like was trying so hard to get through it and just kept knocking her down. It takes you through the entire incredibly complicated, drawn out court process that she had to go through, and you could not imagine the hell that she went through, and her family. You literally could not imagine all that it entailed. It wasn't just one assault. It was like a million assaults over and over again, from him again, from, you know, in the sense of what he put her through in the courts and the court system, and just the wishy-washy, shitty, like manipulative stuff. I gave it an easy 5-star. It's one of my favorite books of all time. I really want to own it. I checked it out from the library and got this cover, which is really cool once you know why it has these sort of like organic gold lines through it. But I actually think that the cover with her portrait on it is so fierce, and I would want to own that one. And I feel like it almost does an injustice to like print it so many and so commonly with the blue and gold one. Even though it's cool, it's just like the portrait one of her is really powerful, and it really makes sense with like the name of the book. Next I read The Regrets, which I heard a lot of people talking about this on Goodreads, and I heard Kayla talking about it, Noelle talking about it. They hated it, and that just intrigued me so much. I just was like, I want to know what's so terrible about this, and I expected to hate it too, because I don't love, you know, just grotesque and shock value for the sake of that. Like I really love horror and supernatural things, but I don't like it when they like just shock and are so crass and like unrelenting just to be edgy. So I thought that's what it was going to be like. I guess I just like thought that it would just be like so punishing the whole time, almost like exhausting to read, and just like that little snippet that Kayla had shown of like the really nasty writing. I kind of thought it was going to be like that the whole time. And I actually absolutely did not hate this book. I think I gave it a 3, and I'm almost thinking of giving it a 3.5 now revisiting it, because I always try to bump up my scores. I bump up my ratings a little bit if if it's memorable. It's a story about a ghost guy who basically just kind of lingers around on Earth in kind of his own like purgatory waiting room kind of limbo thing, but he's on Earth, experiencing sitting in an apartment, eating, going on the bus, and he's just supposed to kind of lay low and wait to be, brought to whatever afterlife thing he's going to go on to next by this sort of like, by the books kind of system and this like authoritative figure telling him this. But he does not listen, and he gets involved with a human girl. It's about their short-lived relationship, and it's told from the perspective of him and her, and then one other perspective. And you know what? This book was not, I didn't really consider it like an exploitative. I thought it was a lot more sad, actually. The parts that were really crass, I felt that was actually super depressing, because what I got from that was his spirit. Not that he was ever a great person by any means. It was real. His morals and the type of person he was very questionable. But the parts that were really awful, and like when he was being so nasty and possessive and super creepy, I took that as that his spirit, he was becoming a vengeful spirit, which is like, if you know anything about vengeful spirits in stories or TV shows or whatever, it's just like a rotting spirit that gets so angry, and it's like not even them, and it's just this echo of this like such potent anger because they're trying to hang on, and they're like super confused, and just their whole being has just been so warped into something. And so that's what I took it from. So when I read that, when I got to that really crass section that I was expecting to just be like, ugh, it was actually like so pitiful and depressing, in my opinion. And the whole book was really, really sad. It kind of put me in a slump for a couple days. I took it as a metaphor, one big metaphor for how deeply depressing it is to pursue somebody, a relationship, or to pursue a career that's just not meant to be, and that you're kind of like pushing it, and it's just it'll always, the fate of it is that, honey, you're not going outside to your catio right now. No, get off of that. No. Okay, we're just gonna have to deal with Star meowing. Next book I read was Lana Del Rey's poetry, Violet Bent Backwards Over the Grass. And I don't want to say too much about this. I thought it was really bad. I gave it a 1 star. I just thought it was so cringy, and I feel mean for saying that because I do think that she's a really talented person. I really like her music, absolutely, but I just don't think it translated over to poetry well, and I felt like it really took itself way too seriously. And I thought it was very self-important. Like, she would, one whole page when you open the book would be like, on one side it was her slightly more raw notes typed up, and then on the other side it was the slightly fixed or formatted poem, but it was so similar. It was like, okay, oh my God, how amazing to see your tiny notes on the side and like one line that you crossed out. And then there was photography. And I just felt like it looked like it was taken with a flip phone in 2006, and not in a charming way. It wasn't like that kind of grainy, cool Tumblr aesthetic. It was just bad and simple, and I didn't like it. But I was considering giving it a 2 star because there was like one poem I liked in there, and then I did like the longer poem. It was more like a short story. It was about like a full page, or maybe like a full page and a half, 2 pages, and it was more of a short story about her like taking sailing lessons, and I actually really liked that one. And I think that if she wrote a novel, like, or a short story, that might be really cool. I enjoyed that pace and that structure and that premise and kind of what she did with that, so that was cool. Next I read Uzumaki by Junji Ito, the full manga collection. This is a horror collection all about spirals. There's 20 chapters, and so it follows a story the whole time of this girl Kiri and her friend boyfriend, as they try to stay safe when their town is just going bonkers from this evil spiral. And each chapter shows spirals in some horrific new way. So it's like one chapter is like how paranoia is festering in the mind of somebody, and the next chapter is like people turning to snails, and the next chapter it's like weird like spirals, crazy curling hair. There is architecture in a spiral. There's really weird like tangling body horror. There's like a different thing every time. I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was incredible. This is my first Junji Ito. It was body horror, it was paranoia, it was kind of creature stuff, it was like speculative sci-fi stuff. It was really varied and I really, really liked it. I gave it a 4-star initially just because I thought some of the ways that they continued the stories like chapter to chapter, the transitional pieces were like a little bit cheesy. It was kind of like a, and then we never heard of that again. You know, welp. And then the journey must go on. It was just kind of cheesy, kind of Scooby-Doo-esque. It was amazing, it was memorable, it was creepy, it was fun, it was a great reading experience. Next I read Sia Martinez and the Moonlit Beginning of Everything. It was a pretty enjoyable read. It was interesting, the character development was good, the relationships were good. There was really awesome like best friend relationship that didn't feel like just a, you know, meaningless side character. The relationship was good. It was emotional. It didn't strike an emotional chord with me. It didn't like make me tear up or anything, but it was emotional. And this author is really good at beautiful nature writing. I think if she would have leaned into that a little bit more and just like, it would have been a 4 out of 5 star for me. I just felt like once the sci-fi elements came in, it just felt kind of flat and it got really sparse in its description, and sort of that like beautiful nature, spiritual writing kind of fell away. And so that was super inconsistent for me. And the sci-fi part was a bit just cliche. There was some kind of cliche villain monologue type stuff. And so it was just a little bit all over the place for me at about the 3/4 of the way mark, but it was totally enjoyable, and I will read what this author writes afterwards. Next I read Strangers Assume My Girlfriend Is My Nurse by Shane Burkaw, and this was a 5-star amazing read. There's a YouTube channel called Squirmy and Grubs, and it is Shane and Hannah who are in an interabled relationship. Shane has a physical disability called SMA, which has to do with his spine and his muscles. I don't exactly remember what it's called. And Hannah is able-bodied, and they have a relationship and life, you know, vlogging channel. And he runs a nonprofit for providing equipment for people with the same disability. And they're an amazing couple. If you are not following their YouTube channel, you're really missing out. Like I would start with so Squirmy and Grubs, which is their affectionate nicknames for each other with a funny story behind it. I would start with the video where Shane narrates, like does a voiceover for Hannah's makeup tutorial, because that really shows Shane's like crazy imagination and his humor and his love for Hannah and just his sarcastic humor, and it's just so funny. So this is a memoir that was from the last couple of years before they got married, and it's about his life. It's about his work and his childhood memories and his struggles and his triumphs, and you know, I don't want to give too much away other than it was enjoyable from the first to the last page, and it was great. I really hope he writes a fiction novel sometime, because his writing is incredible, and I teared up a few times at just the way that he described his love for Hannah. It's just incredible. Next I read I Might Regret This by Abby Jacobson, which is her memoir with some drawings that I did not see because I checked this out from Libby and it didn't include the PDF of her drawings, which I know I like her art, so I'll just have to seek this out another time. But this was an audiobook that I played little by little all throughout the month of March, and I just felt like I was hanging out with a friend. I love Abby Jacobson. I love her voice. I love her spirit. I love hearing about, I just really don't care that much about celebrity culture. In fact, sometimes I just don't want to hear about like the rich and the famous, because I just feel like it's just this out of touch kind of life, and they're just sort of blinded by like their wealth, and the people around them kind of just in their little bubble, like kissing their ass and stuff. But Abby Jacobson has worked so hard. She came from humble beginnings. You know, she was auditioning for, improv groups, and I didn't realize that she had a lot of anxiety, and I related to her so much in this. I had to pause it so many times and replay it and go, I feel like this is like a story that I'm telling. So I found her somebody who I admire her work, but she's extremely down to earth and relatable, and I really liked it. I felt like the sleep studies were slightly repetitive and they kind of annoyed me, but I think that that's a personal problem, because these sleep studies are basically like, the theme that runs through it is her on a road trip for herself, for like reconnecting with herself, finding herself, trying to get over a really bad breakup, and taking a break from work. And in every, Airbnb, hotel, B&B she stays at, she does a little sleep study about like all these crazy thoughts that are running through her mind that prevent her from sleeping. And it annoyed me a little to hear that, and I think it's because I do the same thing, and it was almost like triggering to my like OCD, my anxiety, my intrusive thoughts. So I think that that was a personal problem why I didn't like that, but I'd like to hear what somebody else who doesn't experience that thought, like if they thought it was really amusing or what. So that was really great. And I played it while I built this shelf, and I have like never built a piece of furniture on, by myself. I get so frustrated and I'm just not handy. So I feel like I have like a special place in my heart, even more now, for Abby Jacobson, because I feel like she like helped me build the shelf. So she is awesome. I love Broad City. I love her voiceover work in Disenchantment. I really liked the drama that she was in. She's amazing. Next, I read I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and I read this at normal speed, not sped up at all, in it like however many hours. The book is 6-hour sitting from like 6 p.m. to 1 a.m. and it was an amazing experience. It wasn't a 5-star for me, it was a 4-star, and I can't figure out why that is yet. I'm still sitting on that, trying to figure out, because it was such a phenomenal experience. I don't know why it wouldn't be a 5-star, but this is about, and all I'll say is this is about a couple visiting his parents for the first time on a road trip, and that's all I'm going to say. This is a thriller, but it's unlike anything else you'll ever read. I don't even know how to talk about it, and I feel like that's sort of how like everybody else is. Like, I would hear about this for months before reading it, and nobody could really say any concrete reasons why this was such an amazing experience, and I feel the same way. I just feel like I'm another person who highly recommends this to you, and if you haven't read it yet, do so. I would recommend the audiobook at normal speed with headphones in the dark for sure. It's mind-bending, it's intricately woven, it's original, it's strange, it's unsettling, it's pretty depressing. I really liked it, even though it was kind of so unsettling to me that I wanted to like read it all the way through. Then I watched the movie. Then I like looked it up, some stuff up on Reddit and some theories and some talk, and then I wanted to just like totally devour all of that and then like not engage with it any further for who knows how long, no more, because it's just really unsettling. And also the movie is so utterly different than the book that, first of all, I don't think you should watch the movie before reading the book. And I don't think you should really even view them as a set. I don't think the movie is an adaptation whatsoever. It's a tribute. It's inspired by it. And I think it's really cool as its own thing when you're not even thinking about the book. Like, I feel the same way about the pairing I feel the same way about the correlation between this movie and this book as I do with The Shining, where it's completely different. That really, you should never compare them. And then you can enjoy them. Next, I read Every Heart a Doorway, and this is where you will click off the video because I gave this a 2 out of 5. This is such an incredibly beloved series by so many people, and I really, really wanted to like it, and there were so many things I did like about it. I loved the dark worlds and the explanation of the creepy worlds, and I really like the idea, like the emotional concept of finding a magical place that welcomes you. I feel like I absolutely connect to that like very deeply. Like as somebody who wasn't diagnosed as autistic till age 28 a few months ago, like I always felt like I didn't fit in. And so that part of the premise is so endearing to me, and it makes me think maybe I will pick up another installment in this series. I just felt like it was so all over the place. It was so half-baked. It was so eclectic to the point of just being so incohesive that my mind couldn't really invest it. My, suspension of disbelief or whatever was shot. The dialogue, was a little pretentious when I wanted to find it, really just odd and endearing. And I didn't really like the Jack or Jill characters. I liked Nancy. I liked Cade. Sumi, kind of mixed feelings there, but I just couldn't get on board with how nonsensical it was, and I wish I could embrace it as a fairy tale and be like, well, that's what it should be. It should be so free and so wild and, kind of eclectic in a good way, but I don't know. I think I will pick up one more of this and see what I feel. Next, I read Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson, and this is a contemporary, a hard-hitting contemporary kind of thriller about an abusive relationship with an aspiring singer and her mentor, I guess. That's all I'll say about the premise. I found this was a 4-star for me. I found it was really engaging. It was strong. I felt that it was really realistic. I felt that it was important. I felt that it was well written. I absolutely loved the juxtaposition of her as feeling like the water and the ocean is her space of magic and freedom and happiness and love, and then that next to the worst parts of her life. It has a lot of really important conversations about how Black women are disrespected, abused, and not listened to. It was a really good book. Next, I read Romina by Junji Ito, and this was just really middle of the road for me. I just really love cosmic horror with no real explanation. I love Annihilation and The Beach House on Shudder, and just these things where these just kind of grotesque things are happening from space, and you don't know why. And I love that it seems evil, but maybe it's literally just doing its thing, trying to survive. That is what I really like. So I just think because of the concept and just how, and it was an enjoyable day reading this. It was a good way to spend, an afternoon on spring break. It was okay. It was just kind of messy, and it didn't really thrill me all that much. And a lot of the action drawings, I didn't even know really what was happening in them. The scale of certain things seemed a little strange, and then felt a little bit repetitive. Just middle of the road. Next, I read The Need by Helen Phillips, which is a speculative horror contemporary sci-fi. I don't really know how to describe it. It was not for those who dislike loose ends or unexplained systems of horror or magic or sci-fi, because it was very open-ended and kind of you didn't really know what was happening. But I absolutely love this book. It was a 5-star, going up in my in my favorites. It's about the anxiety of motherhood and fatigue and paranoia and love, and I just felt like it was eerie and beautiful and strange, and it was just had this lingering feeling with it that I just felt for days after reading it. So 5 stars for me. Next, I read Blood by Rachel McKibbins. It was a horror poetry collection, and I gave this a 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed it. This is a decent sized poetry collection, which I really like, and when I say that, I mean the pages use up the space. It isn't you flip a page and there's 3 lines. I get a little tired of that, how common that is with poetry. But it explores themes of family and mental illness and just these uncanny feelings of trying to kind of escape your fate, and painful relationships, and there's some just like subtle imagery of kind of ghosty stuff, demonic stuff, witchy stuff without ever like being too on the nose. Very visceral and very kind of dazzling, really vivid and really unique. Then I read Winter People by Jennifer McMahon. I gave this a 3 out of 5. It was really engaging, really entertaining. It was creepy. I really liked the timelines it went back and forth from. I just was kind of disappointed by a few plot twists, and I just felt like it could have gone to another level with its horror, and it kind of avoided it, and I feel like it could have deepened the writing of a sisterly relationship that seemed like it was going to be really interesting and really touching, but they just never really, it was just like kind of like unmet potential that I was hoping for. So it might honestly be a personal problem with this book because I feel like there's nothing wrong with it. So I gave that a 3 out of 5. So I believe that is everything. All right, thanks for watching. I am going to do if you liked this horror book, watch these horror movies. And I'm going to do a library haul and an April TBR soon. So thanks for watching.